Wait, do you ever get disappointed when you're showing someone something for the first time and you really want them to get it? And
No,
they
not
don't?
at all. I think
Yes.
Oh.
Matt knew exactly where I was
Absolutely.
going with that question.
I'm clearly an Eeyore.
I'm probably Rue.
I'm a Christopher Robin with a Pooh Rising.
And then I get in a canoe and I'm like, Clairs don't like canoes.
No, they don't.
I'm afraid of this lake.
That's exactly what it was.
Ow.
It was a beautiful moment in our friendship. I was
literally in the middle of getting ready up and down the
Pathetic.
stairs. Ow. I was like, I'm trying to get my hair done. I'm like,
I don't think that's an accurate representation of my owl.
well, you were in such pain you couldn't see clearly. So,
Trauma.
Thank you for listening to the Last Will podcast. I'm Matt Young. I'm a theater educator and a parent. And ever since I lost my father to cancer, I have been mildly obsessed with death. This is my last will and testament. Albert Einstein once said, "Creativity is intelligence having fun." Pablo Picasso once said, "The chief enemy of creativity is good sense." Maya Angelou once said, "You can't use up creativity. The more you use, the more you have." That's right, people. I hit you with a hat trick of quotes. That's because today we are discussing creativity. And just like I said a little while back, this is going to be a very special episode. My friend and mentor and creative genius, Peter Green, is here to have a conversation with me about creativity. We're going to center our conversation around a production that he's working on, which embodies creativity to its fullest. A production of Alice in Wonderland, originally devised by the Manhattan Project. Totally different Manhattan Project than the one you may be thinking about. Zero bombs in this, but we make that joke during the podcast. This is what I have to say. This production of Alice in Wonderland, I've seen a little bit of it. It is coming from an incredibly genuine spot. It's coming from a genuine place of storytelling and creativity and discovery. And it's very, very, it is the essence of what organic creativity should be. Every once in a while you run into a project that really is about the creativity and what can we create when you put together a group of artists and see what happens. I'm very excited for this production, so let's just get all the information out right now. Instead of doing a wacky commercial or something like that, I'm just going to give you all the information. Okay, so here it is. Go to tpnc.org. That's where you can get your tickets. The show opens on April 26th and closes on May 12th. Matinees on Sunday are at 2 and nighttime performances are at 8. It also has original music by Keith Levinson, who, I'm not exaggerating, is a musical genius. He's a musical genius. Also, what they've done to the theater is they've totally rearranged it for a unique experience like nothing else you've ever seen at the Town Players of New Canaan. So go to Waveney Park, go to tpnc.org, and that's where you can get your tickets. I hope you enjoy this conversation about creativity that I had with Peter Green, the director of Alice in Wonderland. Enjoy. All good stuff. So you were telling me last night that you're in a food coma because you invested in a lot of Indian food. It was a potluck. You guys are doing potlucks and stuff like that.
Yes, Indian potluck.
All right.
I made saag paneer
Ooh.
and lamb vindaloo and raita, and somebody made butter chicken, and people made all these samosas and aloo tiki things and desserts, and it was over the top.
I once had a shrimp vindaloo that burned me so bad that every time I watch the show Hot Ones where they're eating wings, I'm like, it has to be like the shrimp vindaloo I had.
I had a chicken vindaloo once. Like in my life, I remember 3 moments where I ate something that was hotter than I could actually ingest, and one of them was a vindaloo.
That's crazy.
Yeah.
We had vindaloo experience. I'm hoping that we also didn't have a Burger King Whopper in London experiences that mirror each other, because I haven't eaten a raw onion in 20-something years, since 94, where I had a bad one in London. I don't blame you, London. I don't. I just blame
I didn't know that there was a bad onion thing.
Oh, for me, yeah. I love onion rings, though. so I can
Okay.
eat onion rings, but like raw onion, it's still I
Maybe there
can't
was
do it.
some biological matter on the onion that had not been cooked off.
That all of that could be very true, but now just the flavor of the onion will give me a little bit of the gag, and so I just can't do it. Can't do it.
So not to acknowledge too heavily that what we're doing here is a technological thing.
Yes,
But should I be closer to this mic?
absolutely,
Okay.
absolutely. But I was going to get to there because we always do like a bit of a soft opening,
right.
and then we go into it. Hey, welcome to the Last Will podcast. If you're let me just tell you that your sound isn't off. I have a new friend here today. Claire and Grady will be back. They'll be back tomorrow. But this is a special episode with my friend, Peter Green. And I say my friend, but he's also been my mentor for, I want to think, whether you know it or not, you've been working that way, for 10 years? Over 10 years? How long have we known each other?
I think it's over 10 years.
Because when we met, I was still working in Wilton, and some of those Wilton kids, or I just stopped working in Wilton, are doctors now. And some have kids, so it's got to be at least a decade, right?
It was Jekyll and Hyde. I have no idea what year that was.
And me neither. I think it had to be past 2010. I had kids.
I could look it up.
Nah, it's fine.
Okay.
It wasn't the musical.
No.
No.
No, it was a bogus experimental theater version of...
Jeffrey Hatcher, who's a playwright I like.
Well, okay, Mr. Hatcher, no shade on you.
No. He wrote a play called Stage Beauty that I've always tried to mount about one of the last male actors playing like all of the women parts, was like known for all the women parts. I can't remember his actual name. They made it into a movie. The movie's actually called Stage Beauty. The play is called I'm so sorry, Mr. Hatcher, because I know you're probably listening.
Yeah.
I want to say Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. No, that's not it. I know that's not it. Something Stage Beauty.
What I Did for Love?
What I Did for Love, Stage Beauty. So Peter's here, and as I said, Peter's a mentor of mine. And I wanted to have Peter on the show. I wanted to have Peter and his wife Karen on the show for a long time to talk about the idea of community, because we used to work on for a theater company that Peter and Karen created called Lawn Chair Theater, and we would do Shakespeare every summer, and we would do like 7 shows in 6 venues, and it was like the old traveling players going from town to town, and like a pregnancy, you had to forget how difficult it was every summer in order to get going again, because it was a lot of work.
It remains the hardest thing I've ever done in my life.
And your back will tell you that every time.
Every day I get out of bed, I remember Lawn Chair Theater. Yes, it's
but
true.
the thing about Lawn Chair more than anything else for me was it represented community in a way that I don't think I'd ever experienced community. Like, we talk about the idea of community theater, but Lawn Chair for me really represented that, because you needed everybody to come together in order to pull this magic trick off.
It was also our ethic, I want to say. Like, it was
I agree.
It was a stated purpose for us that the community, the word community, was going to be as equally weighted as the word theater.
Yeah.
That there was no point in doing this very arduous thing unless we were going to create, enjoy, celebrate the community that was doing it.
Yeah. I as a theater educator for as long as I've been, that's what I strive for every year. And I think having done Lawn Chair Theater made me better at that for sure, because it made me aware of community in a way that I don't always think I was. I think I would say it was process-based, but I was also product-based at the same time. And so sometimes I wasn't sure how to balance those two things out.
I'm not sure that that's on the same continuum.
Okay.
Because I think it's possible to be very community-oriented and still be product-based. Sometimes you just have to be.
Well, yes, but I think in terms of my connection to product, it was like looking at talent. You know, and when you're dealing with a company that is community-based, the talent is going to range in different ways. And as an educator, I'm always pushing people to their ceiling, no matter where the talent is. And outside forces, when they look at a production, like a high school or middle school production, they can't see that this kid who maybe has the crackly voice and doesn't have much of a character has run up 4 flights of stairs to get to his roof and grown so much as a performer, but may not be at the level of the kid who hasn't worked as hard, but is just naturally talented and stuff
I think
like
this
that.
is also like outside of the arts that there's so I'm a firmly in the sort of late boomer demographic,
Firmly.
and a lot of my peers like to make fun of the fragility of the younger generations.
Yes.
I hear that a lot.
Yeah.
Actually, right?
It's a punchline all over
It's
the
a
place.
punchline, and the idea that you need to make space for people, etc.
Yeah.
And I think, okay, so I wear another hat, which is that I'm a social worker. But I think I'm sorry that these generations are as fragile as they are, and I see the fragility as real. But I also don't think it's why shouldn't I make space for people who are fragile? Like, what's the problem here? You know?
Yes.
So I grew up in a way of making art that was bitchy. Can I say bitchy?
Mm-hmm.
You know?
Yeah, you can use them all.
We were, as theater kids, we were bitchy. We liked to make fun of each other, and we would like sort of insult each other and take each other down and do all that stuff. And it was all love, right? It was all we love each other, so we can call each other that.
Yeah.
And we were really sarcastic kids, and I learned at some point early in social work time that sarcasm was a luxury I could no longer afford.
Right.
And I was rehearsing, I don't know which lawn chair show. It was early-ish
Yeah.
in my time doing lawn chair. And there was a particular member of a cast who was, and I don't think this was a Gen Z person. It was just somebody, whatever their age, who was really, needy, who was a little, I don't want to go so far as to say narcissistic, although maybe that applies. I don't know. But it was sort of about them, and they had a lot of needs about it,
Right.
And they were not shy in saying that they needed this to happen or that to happen or this to happen. And there was one, big full cast rehearsal, and we were getting going, and they said something about something that had to happen, And I looked at them and I said, "Okay, princess." And as I said it,
Yeah.
I felt bad. And I certainly made the point. I mean, it made the point.
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
But I was like, there's got to be a better way to do this.
Right. Like there's a legitimate, I guess, lesson lesson that you're trying to teach in that moment, but
You're not
coming at
teaching it.
No.
You may think you can always either vent or be strategic. Like you
Yeah.
can say what you want to say, or you can get the result you want. You can't usually do both.
Yeah.
And I was raised in a theater where people where our educators and directors thought it was okay to belittle us into authenticity.
Yeah.
And that just ain't a thing as far as I'm concerned.
Yeah.
You can't, the standing on stage is this revolutionary act, right? You're just making yourself available for people to look at you,
Right.
which violates a societal taboo anyway.
Absolutely.
And you're asking, and if you're acting the way I understand acting, you're also revealing some very essential truth about yourself, even as you're lying about the character.
Right.
Right? I'm not really this guy in this story, but my heart is on stage.
Right.
So if I'm gonna ask an actor to stand on stage and be as emotionally honest as they can be, I can't be insulting them. It doesn't work.
No, you can't bully them, and that's the thing that seems to be missing out of a lot of like theater education. I can't even think of the word.
Well,
Experiences.
I
Because
like to
you're-
think it's getting better. I don't know.
I'd like to agree with you, but I don't know that I do. I witnessed too many moments of educators bullying and then expecting vulnerability afterwards, and you just can't push somebody into that. If you don't have a sensitivity to what's actually going on or even an understanding, then you're going to just use bravado to try to get what you want. And I just think
Lord
in
knows I
society,
did
we've seen how poor that works. How poor.
I did so much of it. I had such great negative role models as a young, performing artist, and really, sort of fabulous monsters.
Yeah, I did too, but I just don't. I don't think the tough love doesn't always work.
I'm grateful to
performing
them
arts.
for their example of what not to do.
Yes, absolutely.
And I think of them every time I have an opportunity, one of those moments where I could say this or I could say this.
Yeah.
And the redemptive power of saying the kind thing and of leading with love
Yeah.
is never lost on me.
No. Look, I worked with Paul Sills, like directly with Paul Sills.
Okay.
And Paul Sills' mother was Viola Spolin.
Right.
And,
Who literally wrote the book.
on improvisation, and he was one of the founders of Second City and a legend. But the lesson that I take out of my time with Paul Sills is listen to the words and not the tone. So I don't it's a great lesson, but I don't have a pearl about improvisation. I don't have a pearl about creativity. What I learned was how to take criticism in a way that wasn't personal. And yes, that's valuable. But from this genius, it would have been nice to have had a creative lesson from him.
You learned how to take a hit.
Yeah. Which it's important, and I think that our children, our young performers, can balance out that sensitivity and listening to better and not thinking that everything was taking a shot at their character. But it's also the way that we present the notes, the criticism, for sure. I've recently had people go this is constructive criticism. Constructive criticism gives you a way to make things better. And then it was just criticism with no
Right.
Anyway.
They're just seeing it as a license.
Yes. Permission to
Right.
be rude.
And also permission to score points. Because if I'm a witty person,
Yes.
right, and I have access to funny ways to talk about your performance
Yeah.
in front of your cat, in front of your fellow artist, right, and I can get a laugh and therefore endear myself in a way.
Right.
Well, it's just constructive criticism when I say you walk like a whatever.
Right. I'm still working on that. I remember, too, when we first met, you were like, when you work with kids, there's no room for sarcasm. And I'm like, yeah, you're right. Thinking, I got to change my ways. I got to really change my ways. Well, anyways, I have Peter here, and I thought it would be a perfect opportunity to talk about the idea of creativity. So our subject today is creativity.
What is that?
Well, I'm going to get to the definition first so we know exactly what people think it is.
What even is creativity?
And then we're going to talk about our versions and our takes and how we...
How we creative?
Yeah, how we creative. And it's kind of a perfect opportunity because, like I said in last week's or the week before, we were going to do a special episode about a production that Peter is working on, the Manhattan Project, which always confuses me because the Manhattan Project...
No bombs.
Right, no bombs. Yes, hopefully no bombs in this one.
No bombs.
Creative bombs. The Manhattan Project's Alice in Wonderland, which is a beautiful canvas for creativity. So that's what we're going to talk about today. So according to the AI, creativity is the ability to generate new ideas, concepts, and solutions that are original and valuable. It involves thinking in novel ways, coming up with unique perspectives, and connecting seemingly unrelated concepts to create something innovative or useful.
I totally buy that last bit.
Okay. Creativity can be expressed in various forms such as art, music, literature, technology, problem solving, and more. It often involves a combination of imagination, critical thinking, experimentation, and willingness to take risks. I buy that one too. Creative individuals are known for their ability to think outside the box. Oh, here we go with the cliches. Push boundaries and bring fresh insights to the world around them. Oh, AI, you. So that's what...
Somebody recently, I think there's a growing idea that instead of calling it AI, we should call it just, technological plagiarism.
That's exactly what it is.
Yeah, you're just harvesting the world. You're not actually intelligent.
Yes.
Yeah.
Because you can't solve a problem that hasn't already been talked about.
Right.
You're just gathering information.
Anyway.
So you're working on Alice in Wonderland right now, and that's at the Town Players of New Canaan.
It is.
TPNC.org is where you can get tickets, and it opens on the 26th of this month, April. And this will come
runs
out
for 3 weekends.
3 weekends. Friday, Saturday, Sunday, Friday, Saturday, Sunday. There's no Thursdays there.
No Thursdays.
So this the theater was doing Alice in Wonderland, and then
they were.
And
they had
then-
no idea what they were.
they didn't know which one they wanted to do. And I've read a script early on when I was working with high schools, like, oh, this is, and it seems like an ensemble piece, so this could be good for high schools.
Was it the Eva Le Gallienne script?
I think so. I would have to look, and it was fine. It didn't jump off the page, to
And
me.
it's public domain, Alice in Wonderland. It's PD,
Right.
so anybody could write their own version and do whatever they want. I think the Eva Le Gallienne version does need to be licensed.
okay.
Um,
Yeah, I think because Samuel French.
and I
I'm
think
sorry, Concord.
I think that the town players were hoping for a public domain version that they wouldn't have to pay rights for, because yes, there's creativity, but also these organizations run on the budgets that
Yeah.
they have.
Absolutely.
But they made the mistake of approaching me and asking me if I would direct Alice in Wonderland.
So you and I are at the same place creatively, I think, right now, which is unless it scares us, we don't want to do something that somebody has already done a million times without doing it in a different way. I mean, that's why we love Shakespeare, because Shakespeare, 400 years, every time we're going to tackle a play, we're coming up with a concept. We're not setting it in Renaissance times. We're not setting it in those costumes and
Well,
stuff
that would
like
be
that.
so novel now.
Right. Well, I guess you're right.
That would be fascinating now.
But we like to be a little scared because we live in the place of discovery. That's what feeds us, I think.
I think that I don't know if it's, there's a place where you are you and then you have a reputation and they meet and they become another reality.
Yeah.
But I think that within this tiny little world of sort of Westchester, Fairfield County community theater, I suspect that people think of me as somebody who likes to fuck shit up,
Yeah.
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 And somebody who likes to do, quote, the weird stuff, unquote. Which is interesting because I just want to make theater that's honest.
And you're the only one who can convince me to go see Our Town. So, that feels as, down Main Street as can be.
It's always the same question. How do you make a work? How do you understand a text as a contemporary piece of theater?
Yes.
To me, Shakespeare is a contemporary playwright.
And he wrote for a modern audience, so we should play for a modern audience.
He's still talking to us. He's
Yes.
still talking about us. He still understands us.
Yeah.
I feel that way about Thornton Wilder, which I know you don't.
But every time, like, I don't want to see it, but every time you do it, I'll be like, oh, well, maybe this time.
Well, I
this
may
time
be
it's for me.
done. I don't know how many times I need to do it. You
Right.
know, I may have.
Maybe I just
satisfied
have
the
to do it.
itch.
Maybe that's the thing that scares me, and
Yeah,
I
you
have
need
to
to
figure
do
it out. Well, who knows? So you chose. They asked you to do Alice in Wonderland, and
All right,
you,
so they're. So I was, again, boomer that I am. My acting training, a lot of it took place in that late '60s and early '70s time, and I was a devotee of experimental theater. I wrote recently on a social media post that it's the genre that I fell hardest for,
right.
and although I've done very little of it in my life because it didn't attain the popularity that I had hoped it would.
Right.
But
And it also takes a certain creativity, and so people don't do it.
and it takes time that people
Yes.
can't afford in this marketplace.
Okay, I'll give you that.
Anyway, there was a company, the Manhattan Project. Andre Gregory, the director, recruited a bunch of NYU trained and Grotowski trained. I don't know if the name Jerzy Grotowski or Jerzy Grotowski means anything to anybody, but he was sort of the guru of experimental and avant-garde theater back then.
Was it like physically based acting, or was it?
Boy, howdy, was it physically based.
Okay. All right.
Yeah. It was grueling.
Yeah.
And yeah, it was like circus training, like mime training on steroids.
Yeah. Yeah.
And the search was for a way to make theatrical experiences that did not rely on language,
Okay.
that somehow bypassed the pitfall of text. So all you got was subtext.
Yeah.
You went straight to it.
Right.
So we were all trained like this, like these. I don't know. I've never been so toned and limber and flexible and all that in my life. But he recruited a bunch of young performers who were trained this way.
Yeah.
6 of them, and they just started working for the sake of working together. And they had a lot of ideas about what text to work on and pick them up, threw them out. At some point, one of the members of the company, a woman named Angela Pietro Pinto, who I believe is still teaching acting at NYU to this day, suggested Alice in Wonderland. And they spent 2 years for no money. Like, these people, God
Yeah.
knows what jobs they had. Like, every now and then a grant would come through, but they, it was hard. And NYU would give them studio space and then take it away and then give it back. But they built this thing. And they built it, they would do 2 months of improvisations about the Alice Little's family.
Yeah.
And in the finished piece, maybe there's one line of dialogue said by a duck out of that improvisation.
Right.
They took forever, and they made this thing, and then when it was finished, they didn't even know what they had, and they started performing it for audiences because they needed the money,
Yeah.
and it was a sensation. It kind of galvanized the experimental theater world. It toured for like 7 years. It was a big deal. When I was accepted to SUNY Purchase for this experimental theater training program, I was told that I had to have read 3 books day one, like summer before freshman year.
Right.
They were a book called Zen and the Art of Archery, a book called Acting the First 6 Lessons, and a book called Alice in Wonderland, The Forming of a Company, The Making of a Play, which was this coffee table book with photos by Richard Avedon and lengthy interviews among the ensemble about how they made the thing, and then a script to the thing.
Yeah.
And then I went to see it. I saw it in like 1974 in New York City. We took a field trip. And I remember it as this wild ride, this exhilarating, antic, emotional, funny, powerful, this thing. Memory dims exactly what it was that I saw.
Yeah.
I remember little moments. So anyway, when the Town Players of New Canaan, fast forward this very many years later, excuse me, said to me, would you like to direct Alice in Wonderland? I said, yeah, if I can do this, which of course then they had a license. I'm sorry.
Well,
And off we went.
Yeah.
And then I said, can we not do this in the proscenium shape that is your theater? Can we do it in the round?
Which I recently was in the theater and had auditions there and just saw the space, and it gave me chills. It just gave me chills there's a couple things that are going on within this production already that give me the chills. One is I love a story that's familiar seen in a different way. I'm a big fan of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead because we're skewing perception on something that is well known. And that's exactly what we're doing here. And then to go into the theater and go, oh, everybody's taking a leap of faith. Like, I have no doubt that Peter's going to take a leap of faith. I have no doubt that the cast is going to take a leap of faith. But the theater is now taking a leap of faith.
And they did it
by moving the chairs around, giving you a different experience in that space. I come from a theater where, even my high school theater, we would do stuff in the round on the stage. It didn't just have to be proscenium acting. So
Right.
I was so prepared when I went to college to be a thinking actor, because you have to when you're working in alternative spaces. You have to be aware of your surroundings. You have to use your soft focus. It forces you. It's yes and of theater because it forces you to be present in every way.
And they, the Town Players, without batting an eyelash. Is it batting an eye or batting an eyelash? I don't know. Anyway,
I've heard batting an eye.
I guess
but,
batting
but,
an eye.
but really, it is your lashes that are going up and down.
They're
If we want-
batting, right?
Yes, yeah.
The Town Players just said, yes, sure. And Joel Reynolds, who was the sort of master carpenter and TD there, just said, yeah, let's just figure this out, and built this multi-level. And okay. The theater I grew up in, the experimental theater I grew up in, is the idea of a poor theater. Grotowski's book was called Towards a Poor Theater. It was a theater devoid of tech. If you went to see Grotowski's company work, there would be like 2 flashlights on the floor pointing at the ceiling, and that was all your lighting, and there's no set.
Yeah.
And so it doesn't occur to me, oh yeah, art direction. Okay, somebody have an idea? Like, that's me.
Yeah.
But they built this very elegant looking space. It makes me want to cry. And then, directing is like you dream a thing.
Yeah.
And then people show up, if you're lucky, and they dream with you. Or they even dream their dream of your dream, and it gets bigger.
Yeah.
So Alex Theodoropoulos, who is this amazing visual artist, is creating this subterranean, the underside of a tree meets Victorian England. She's creating this environment in this space that Joel built. And then my friend Keith Levinson, who is one of my oldest collaborators, musician, composer, arranger, conductor, his regular gig as he travels with the band The Who with Pete Townsend and Roger Daltrey and The Who, and he conducts the symphony orchestras.
He's busy. He's a busy man.
He's a good guy. So Keith, he's got a down moment on his schedule, and he was like, "Well, do you want to score?" And I was all ready to do all this needle drop stuff, and I found this song and that song, and he just said, "No, I'll do this." So the music is coming in, sort of day by day. It's unbelievable.
I'm sure. Just a beautiful, beautiful thing. I look at that space and I'm Joel, we may just leave that up for the next production.
You should.
I think so.
Yeah. So the thing that Matt sort of buried the lead on is that you're directing the show after me.
Yes,
Right.
in that space, and
it's a show that lends itself, I think, to that idea.
I agree. I absolutely agree.
As long as they're willing to sell fewer tickets, because you're taking seats out.
Yeah, I mean, I don't know what they plan to make with Eurydice at all, if they think people will come, but we're going to get people there, as you're going to get people there for Alice in Wonderland.
I hope so. It's a lot of, once again, it is a lot of work to work this way. I had
Yeah.
to double our rehearsal period, and I'm asking a lot of these performers in terms of their physical effort and in terms of their emotional labor, but they're doing it out of fun
Yeah.
and love and a spirit of play and a spirit of ensemble. It's very sweet to see.
It's a beautiful. The few people who I've spoken to who are working on it right now have a glow in their eye about the work, and I'm not going to say that that's rare, because we can find positivity in all the different local things that we do, but this feels different. This definitely feels different.
When I'm not working with the cast, I miss them.
Yes.
And
Yes.
that's a little rare. Just a
But
little rare.
it does give me a lawn chair feel.
Yeah.
It does give me a lawn chair
Well, it's
feel.
what we try. I mean, that's the idea. Like
It is. You are lawn chair, so I mean, it's not surprising in any
Excuse
way.
me. I always want to make the beloved community. It's like religion for me.
Yeah.
I always want to make that world where we come together out of love and appreciation for each other, and we play.
Yeah.
That's always what I'm hoping for. And then circumstances do what they do.
Yeah,
You get that
absolutely.
one or number of cast members who aren't in a place where they can meet everybody there.
Yeah.
Or you get the sort of the politics of whatever theater you're in, or the agendas of whoever you're working with. Sometimes it doesn't land like that.
Yeah. But when you're in a situation like you do, and what we know is it leads to the best type of creativity, the best type of discovery, which I think is, look, we don't get paid. That's our payment. Our payment is creativity. Our payment is discovery. It's all of that. It's learning about ourselves as creative people and just normal people. And I think that's a great reward.
So here's a question. I know you're asking me questions, but I'll ask you one as well.
Sure.
Why do you make theater?
Why do I make theater? I'm stalling. That's why I repeated the question for anybody who doesn't know that technique.
I've thought about this a lot.
My first response, I think, would be because I have to, which may not be a real answer, but I can't see living without the idea of discovery. I want to sit in a place of not knowing and figure things out. The reason that I like things that scare me is not because I am arrogant enough to think that I have all the answers, because I don't. I have very few answers, but I trust in the process of discovery, and I know that we'll be able to find it. I didn't understand how we would do Curious Incident without millions and millions of dollars. And I wanted to, for years, have that problem in front of me so that I was forced to solve it.
Right.
And although at times was heartbreaking and frustrating, in the end, I couldn't be prouder of what we figured out in terms of discovery, being with these people and finding new things and being able to tell Christopher's story in a new way under the guise of this one question of how do we make the audience feel like Christopher.
I feel like there's a thing that inside what you just said that we should circle back
Sure.
to, which is about the virtue of limitation
Yeah.
in creativity.
Yeah.
I think that I love the idea that you make theater because you have to, and I feel like I think I felt that way for a very long time in my life, and
Yeah.
I don't really anymore. And I think the reasons you make, at least for me, the reasons I make theater changed so many times in my
Yeah.
life. When I was little, it was totally look at me, right?
Yeah.
I need to be validated, and I have this facility to make funny voices or whatever. And if I'm on stage and you're looking at me and laughing and acknowledging me, then I exist, and
Yeah.
I'm not a loser.
True.
That was, and and girls will like me. So that
No,
was,
for me, I think it was that last one. It was always just I want girls to like me.
so that's one. Like that's where we start,
Yes.
and then, shit happens, and I have reached the place where mostly I do theater because I want to share the essential human experience. When you make honest theater, you're inviting audiences into the very essence of what it is to live a human life.
Yeah.
And to me, that's how we make more empathy in the world.
Yeah.
And in a world that really needs a whole lot more empathy than it's got. So I don't know if I would call it political, but or religious or spiritual or philosophical, I don't know. But it is this idea that I make theater because I want audiences to have an experience of heightened authenticity, for them to walk away and go, yeah, that's human, that's our lives. That's what that's like.
And also give an articulation maybe to tough moments that they have that they don't have the words to express. I mean, that I've said it on this podcast many times, but Ethan Hawke has this great quote that says, who thinks about poetry? Well, we think about poetry, and we need poetry when someone is dealing with grief, or
Yes.
they've fallen in love, or they've been heartbroken. This is where that articulation, where we may not have the way to express ourselves, it helps us express things that we don't have the words for.
And it helps us to see our difficulties in others, which conceivably prevents us from othering people.
Yeah. We're so much more alike than we think, and we're so different in ways that aren't a threat.
And really, our struggles are what elevate our existence and frame it and unite us.
Yeah, for sure.
Life is difficult, right? It just is. It's also really sweet.
Yeah.
But the sweetness doesn't take away the difficulty, and the difficulty doesn't take away the sweetness. And here you go,
Yeah. And I mean, yeah, the human experience is being reflected, the human experience, the reflection of that, the mirror of that. And art helps ground us and get us through maybe some tough days,
Yeah.
or helps us celebrate a little bit deeper, or lets us let some praise in that maybe we were thinking we don't deserve. And like you said, one doesn't diminish the other, just because I mourn the death of my father doesn't mean that if I have a happy day or I'm feeling a success that I grieve him any less,
Right.
And sometimes we feel like we have to play a part.
Sometimes grief feels like appreciation.
Yeah. I'm very excited. Eurydice in itself is an exploration of grief, and it couldn't come to me at a better time for exploration.
Yeah.
So I was reading a little bit. The New York Times wrote a review of the Manhattan Project's Atlas.
Yes.
And one of the things that it said was,
Clive Barnes, right?
I didn't look who wrote it, and I was like, you should look who wrote it so you can quote
I think it's
right
Clive
thing.
Barnes, but please go on.
And he had mentioned the idea of it was very, very funny, but that the funny came from the release of tension because it was really about fear. And I wondered what you thought of that. And then I thought to myself, well, there's no way that Peter's going to acknowledge this, but there's no way that that's going to be the path that he takes. First of all, because, it's already there, and he didn't know the group that he has. And now that he knows the group that he has, and what is going to be the foundation of the start of the work. Because I would imagine creatively, we start somewhere, and then, as our old friend George Morrison used to say, you put it in no motion, and then you see what happens.
I
don't know
thought
if
I
you
knew
ever
what it
heard
was
of that.
about.
Oh, okay.
I thought I knew what it was about.
That's a beautiful sentence. I thought I knew.
I have to cough. I'm sorry.
No, go ahead.
I thought I knew what our version of Alice was about because I had read it and thought about it, and I was like, okay, so Alice is on this journey of acceptance that she's this Victorian era child. She's a bit of a brat, and she finds herself in this world where nobody behaves in a way that's societally normed, and everybody's behavior is bizarre, against the rules, taboo. And she starts out trying to correct them all and judge them all. And by the end, and I should say that this script is not all of Alice in Wonderland and Through the Looking Glass. They picked and chose the scenes that created the relationship, that gave them an opportunity to explore the relationships within the company.
Okay.
So the way the journey goes, it ends with 3 two-person scenes. The White Queen and Alice, Humpty Dumpty and Alice, and the White Knight, and then it ends. She comes back up the rabbit hole.
Oh, spoilers.
Oh, sorry,
Oh no, I think you probably known because the story's been around for a long time.
a little bit. So I saw it as this journey of Alice to become an accepting person, to be able to meet people as themselves instead of as, oh, your behavior is not okay, you know?
Yeah.
That it was Alice learning how to live in a non-normative world, which really speaks to these times. I feel
Right.
like we are in the process of becoming a less normative world, which is why, so many people I know are bemoaning, the profusion of pronouns and stuff. Why do I have to have all this?
Right,
Because
right.
we're not normative anymore.
Yeah,
People get to say who they are.
and-
It's okay.
And you said you want me to call you Henry, so I'm calling you Henry. I mean, it's like that simple.
It's
But
that simple. All right. Anyway,
selfish. Yes.
No
No
so I
digression.
saw this as an exploration of somebody learning to live in a non-normative world.
Okay.
And then I started rehearsing. And I also thought, so one more thing. I also thought about madness a lot.
Okay.
So you can't go a day without somebody going, the definition of madness is doing the same thing. And actually, that's not the definition. I'm sorry, social worker speaking here. That's
Right.
got shit to do with madness. I don't. You call it what you will. It's
Right.
foolishness. Madness, as I understand it, is living in a reality that causes you to behave in a way that does not conform to the reality of everybody around you.
Makes sense.
If you were in a world where everybody believes what you believe, you're not mad, right? But if
Right.
I believe that aliens are trying to talk to me through the fillings in my mouth, and I have to wear like a tinfoil hat to protect me, I'm not in a world that believes that. So
Right.
now I'm crazy
Right.
because it's still my reality. It just doesn't comport with yours. Anyway, I had this idea that Alice could also be sort of an exploration of madness. That because the Cheshire Cat says we're all mad here. What does it mean that they're all mad? It means that nobody behaves in a way that conforms to Alice's reality.
Right. But couldn't she be the mad one because the reality
Yeah, of
is
course. Anyway, I thought that we were going to be exploring that, and then we started rehearsing, and the play and the players told me what it was,
Yeah.
and
That's a really truly beautiful thing.
I have to say even more clearly that they told me what it wasn't.
Yes. Yeah. I mean, that's process too. Like process is the exploration of things that aren't working to help guide you towards what's working. That's what I think.
And because we're so process focused in this show, because we really are doing it the way it was done in
Yeah.
that, not thinking so much about product, I don't know what it is yet. We open in 2 weeks. I don't know what it is.
And maybe what it is for you is to facilitate a environment that makes people feel safe enough to be vulnerable, and what it is going to be the individual decision of everybody who walks into that theater and leaves that theater after having seen it. Like
100%, as people say nowadays. Sure.
Yeah.
Also, I feel like I understand moment by moment or scene by scene what it is. I
Yeah.
understand what Humpty Dumpty is about. I think I understand what the White Knight is about. What Alice, the way the play is constructed, instead of her being alone in that room with the table and the cake and the key and
Right.
the locked doors. The Manhattan Project put the character of Lewis Carroll in the room with her
Yeah.
as sort of goad and narrator and like that. I understand what that scene's about.
Yeah, I
You
think
know.
in the review, I think it said it is all about Lewis Carroll, and the idea that in a dream, it's really a nightmare because everybody is who they say they are, as opposed to being a dream and something that may mean something else. But I saw
interesting.
I saw a play in London that was when I was studying there. Called Alice Through the Looking Glass, and it was just about Alice and Lewis Carroll. And I think it was about the formation of the stories. I don't remember a lot of the details. I don't remember it moving me in a way. I didn't find myself connecting to what his process was, because I think he was a bit of a creep in it as well.
He
And
was
I-
a bit of a
Well,
creep, we think.
Yes.
Yeah.
And I think they were leaning on that. So I think it just it pushed me away a little bit. But that's not what we're talking about here.
You know, we do all that research about how things get written, and we do all the sort of dramaturgical research,
Yeah.
and then you kind of throw it away.
Yeah,
Like, oh,
'cause-
good, I'm glad to know all that. Now, what's this moment between these people in this very real encounter,
Yeah.
and how does the real encounter play with, against, vibrate against the text we're speaking?
Yeah.
You know, and this is again, our friend George Morrison, right? That we don't worry, we let the text do its job,
Yeah.
and we do ours.
Yeah.
You know.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
One of the things I was thinking when you were talking about it was like, it's beyond labels. We don't need to label this. If you want something that's labeled, go watch an Agatha Christie mystery. You know, that's a murder mystery. That's label. You know what you're getting when you go in. This is not like that. This is a reflection, like you're talking about, of the human experiment, the human condition, and people are just going to walk out pulling different things. And are they ready for that? I hope they walk in skeptical and they leave.
I want to say,
Not enlightened, but like floating.
I feel like this is a really authentic journey,
You can't beat that.
and it's really playful, and some of it's kind of balletic and elegant. Some of it's just funny. Some of it feels like slapstick. Some of it is very profound and emotional. That Alice has a wide journey in terms of the ups and downs,
Yeah.
and that her time in Wonderland is not simple and is not easily reduced to one idea. It's not zany, It's not madcap, although some of it is like that.
Yeah.
But by the end, she certainly is, to me, changed by the experience.
Yeah.
She's altered. She's been opened up by the experience. And if I have a hope for my audience, is that they will leave feeling like they've been sort of opened up.
Yeah.
Like their minds got expanded a little, and like their hearts got expanded a little. And I'm not assuming that anybody, that everybody needs to have their minds and hearts expanded. I'm not
But they
preaching.
do.
I'm not preaching anything.
I'll preach it. They do. No, but how cool would that be? Is if they're experiencing what Alice is experiencing. Like they're coming in thinking that they're getting one thing, and they walk out with something totally different. And I can almost guarantee that is going to happen.
And we're not like, it's not like we're not doing the text. What the Manhattan Project made, the script that we've licensed, is, 95% Lewis Carroll's words.
Yeah.
There's some interpolation around it, but mostly it's that. It's not every scene, like I said, and the segues from moment to moment happen in a free-flowing, I don't want to use the word organic, I'm tired of the word organic, in a free-flowing way.
Yeah.
And by and large, the cast creates the environment. So that's that experimental theater idea, right?
I think people in their minds, they hear experimental and they have a judgment on it. So I hope that when they go and see this, and you people should all go and see this, that changes as well.
I have been, the last time I went to a real live experimental theater production in the city, not very many years ago, maybe just pre-COVID. It was. I don't even know if I want to say the name of the company because I don't want to besmirch anybody. This is one of the legendary, seminal, important, very sort of politically radical experimental theaters from the 1960s. This is a very powerful legacy.
Yeah.
And one of the founders was still alive and working, and they made a show that was sort of about, about revolution. And we walked in and sat down, and they came over and they handed us pieces of leather and scissors and lace, and they were like, "We're all going to make shoes." It was embarrassing for everybody.
Yeah.
And then they taught us a song about revolution we were supposed to sing, and they kind of marched us around the stage. Now we're going to sit over here, and it was appalling.
Yeah.
And silly, and it wasn't intentionally silly. So I want to say, to reassure anybody who's thinking about coming or not, that nobody's going to ask you to make shoes. That this is not, it's intimate in a way, the way the space is constructed, you're not very far away from the actors.
Right.
But nobody's going to sit on your lap. Nobody's going to stand you on stage. Nobody is going to interact with you. It's not
audience involvement.
It's not Sleep No More,
Yeah.
So you'll be safe. Physically.
That's important for an audience. And if you are looking to make shoes, you can still come too. Just because you wanted a pair of shoes at the end of the production,
You can make shoes later.
yeah, you can do it.
Totally.
So sometimes on the show, we like to just go through some of the cliches and
About
myths
creativity?
of creativity and stuff like that.
Bring it on.
So let's just go with the cliches first. One of the cliches: think outside the box. Think outside the box. Which I get what you're trying to say. This is what I said to the people who auditioned for Eurydice, and I really loved this, and so I'm patting myself on the back for it, which, as you know, isn't something that I often do.
You don't do it often enough.
Well, thank you. I said the story of Eurydice and Orpheus is so well known over the years that that's the melody. We don't need to play the melody here. We're gonna play the harmonies. We're gonna play the dissonant chords. We're gonna play everything else. And so that's going to go throughout my processes, especially because it's about music, is we don't need to play the melody. You don't need to play the melody. And I think it's the same idea of think outside the box. But anytime corporate America grabs something, then you're losing its...
I just think the word think is interesting to me. Like, that's like, I'm going to try to solve this problem. And there's something very nonlinear. So like, this is Alice in Wonderland. Everybody kind of knows it, and they know that Disney, and they kind of know it without knowing it.
Right.
But, one of the cast members, you'll start a scene and they'll be like, well, do you want that voice? Like, do you want the mouse to sound,
Yeah.
And I just keep saying, no, it's just you. I may, by the time we get to performance, ask them to add those voices back in.
Right.
But I got to start from something else.
Yeah, absolutely.
For me, this is what it feels like to be directing this show. I feel like I'm like a giant radio antenna. And the universe is out there. And I just sit in that rehearsal, and I just open up the veins of the antenna, and I wait for shit to be received.
Yeah.
In a way that all I have to do is decide one moment. Like, if I can say, can you begin the scene standing over here? And can we talk about what we think it's about?
Right.
And then go. And then they go. And then I'm like, oh, thank you for showing me that. Now I know what's next. And then they do that and they add, oh, thank you for showing me that.
Yeah.
Now I know what's next. And the limitation idea, right, that when we know what we can't do, or what we are, the box we are in, it's actually thinking inside the box.
Okay.
Not out.
Yeah.
Like Shakespeare didn't write outside the box. He wrote an iambic fucking pentameter.
Yeah.
What's more of a box than da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da-da?
True.
And because he gave himself that box, he was able to be endlessly and eternally inventive.
Yeah.
So, give me a box, and then let me fuck with it.
Yeah. I get it.
I
get it. I mean, I think for me, what I see being a dead end for a lot of people is they create the box early on, and that's it. You're just doing that one thing.
You're serving the text. Oh, I just want to serve the text. Don't serve the text. Serve yourself
Yeah.
and let the text do its job.
But or even. Yeah, they are. They're obligated only to the text. And the
You know
one thing
what's-
I say often is like, we have to, like, we'll get to it, but we have to move away from the obligations of the scene in order to open things up for ourselves.
Well, you know those people, like either singers or actors, who feel the need to gesture with the text?
Yes.
Like they say the word the moon and their hand goes up towards the
Yes.
sky, and they say the word my heart and their hand goes on their chest, and then like there's this somehow like they're stapled to the, it's a say, we call it say, right?
Yeah.
I can't cope. I can't.
Imagine if acting was all indication.
I can't. And it was once upon a time. We
I
know that
know.
in the 1800s there was a, you could see pictorial encyclopedias of gesture.
Yeah.
You
I
know?
mean, you really have to give credit too, right, to the Moscow Art Theater,
Really.
and all
Stanislavski
Yeah.
and Chekhov.
who went into like, oh, what would it be like if we were natural? Let's see what that's about. Creativity is intelligence having fun. I've never heard that one before. Creativity is intelligence having fun.
I would say that I agree, as long as we don't start to quantify intelligence and be like only smart people can be creative, because really no.
Right. I've been seeing this thing go around about this doctor. I think he's an Indian doctor, and he's being interviewed, and he said that the one regret I had in life is the way that I like dedicated myself to being a doctor, because I lost playfulness, and playfulness is really like the greatest gift. I'm paraphrasing in an awful way, but like that was the idea, was never lose your playfulness. And creativity to me is I guess an invitation to be playful, because
Yeah.
so much of our life is a little bit more serious, and we have responsibilities, at least as Americans. I think the Europeans probably know how to be a little bit more playful, and they don't dedicate themselves. 90% of who they are isn't their work. It's just part of their
That may
life.
depend where in Europe you're talking
Yeah,
about.
well, of course.
Yeah.
Yes, for
Know
sure.
what you mean,
for
though.
sure. There's usually water close by. You can visit that. Creativity is a wild mind and a disciplined eye. What?
Okay, I'm going to sit with that for half a second. A
Yeah.
wild mind and a disciplined eye.
And a disciplined eye.
I don't know the eye is the right organ for the discipline, but I know what they mean. I think.
No, so I saw. I think I've said this here before. I saw Stephen King talk at Radio City Music Hall, and one of the things he said about writing, when you really want to be a writer, is you got to sit down at 10 a.m. every day at the computer and write, and it doesn't matter if it's garbage, you just write. And I've always thought, like, yeah, when we're not in flow, when we're not in the zone, when creativity isn't coming easy, that's when we need the discipline of our craft, and we have to sit down and we have to be a little bit more disciplined without the attention to the product of what we're doing. It doesn't have to be good, but we have to sit down and like stretch out whatever tool we're using.
You start to me on those days. You just go back to square one. Like, we're going to warm up,
Yep.
and we're going to stand in a circle, and we're going to look at each other, and we're going to make a sound and a movement, or we'll do whatever elemental theater game,
Right.
and we're going to center ourselves in our presence with each other.
And that to me is a discipline. You're going back to your craft, because when things are going well, it's not easy, but it's easy.
Also, speaking of discipline, learn your lines.
Yes. Yeah,
Learn your
absolutely.
lines.
It's not all just free flowing. We're going to find things. There are certain disciplines.
Highly recommend, by the way, speaking of Stephen King and writing and that discipline, the book Bird by Bird by Anne Lamott
Okay.
for writers. It's a brilliant thing.
Nice. Creativity takes courage.
Sure. I feel like it's a sort of yes, of course, and then what?
Yeah. There's something about the way it's all phrased, because I asked for creativity cliches, so it's all creativity. And creativity is, as we were discussing before choosing a topic for this, there were all these different things that kind of go under the umbrella of what creativity is.
But what doesn't take? Dude, living takes courage. Come on.
Yeah.
Everybody who gets out of bed in the morning and manages to brush their teeth and put clothing on and leave their doors, I think there's an element of courage to that.
Yeah. But society would be like,
Just get on
toughen
with
up.
it.
Yeah.
I know.
Toughen up. So
Yeah.
it takes a very open heart to see that, which is who you are in general. And I love you for that.
Bless you.
Creativity is contagious.
My child. Creativity is contagious.
What I think is when you have a fearless performer in a group, it helps ignite the rest of the crew to feel safer to take risks.
I have been called by performer, but like working with other actors, there are actors who call you, who demand that you show up. There's a wonderful mostly Connecticut-based performer who's gone now. Her name was Nancy Anderson, and I don't know if your listeners know or don't or whatever.
We played husband and wife one time.
As did she and I.
Now, look at that.
We did 6 Degrees of Separation together.
We did Rumors.
And she was so fucking scary
Yeah.
on stage because there was no place to hide. She just looked at you like, okay, now, motherfucker, here we
Yeah.
are. It was amazing. So much power.
Yeah.
I miss her. So that thing, though, that the ability to call somebody.
Yeah.
And I like to be that person in a cast, to be that person who, not in a scary way,
Yeah.
but to be that person who's like, I'm all here. I'm all here. Are you going to be all here with me? Let's be all here.
Yeah, yeah. I try. Some people call me a problem, but I do. I try. I try to be as present in the moment. I try to lead by example.
Well, you
I know
don't
that
stop
always-
exploring.
No.
You keep going further. And for some shows and for some directors, that could be problematic.
Oh, it's very, and I hear it.
Because there's an idea that we should really set things, but by the time an audience comes, that you may take a certain amount of license on a night when you have a hot hand,
Yeah.
But that we don't want to keep, exploring endlessly. And you are somebody who has a natural, playful and creative bent, who as an actor wants to keep going that step further. I don't know how much of the Beatles, all those hundreds of hours of them working on that last album you saw.
Yeah.
But it's really revealing of John Lennon's way of working. That Paul McCartney had the whole song arranged in his head.
Yep.
And John Lennon would just keep going. Like, he would just keep riffing on the lyrics endlessly. And one got the sense, like, if you never recorded it, he'd be doing it 20 years later, still just a little bit, like spinning out.
Yeah.
I thought that was pretty fascinating.
It absolutely is. Talk about an artist that we miss. Well, this has been something that I've wanted to do for a long time. Obviously, we could talk for hours and hours and hours.
I would love to come back and bring my partner in crime with me.
Yeah,
Talk about
because
community.
I think community is a really important thing to discuss, and I can't have that conversation on this podcast without you and Karen.
And she's my favorite director.
Yes.
And obviously I have a short list of favorite directors, and you're on it as well.
Thank
but
you.
And she and I, in terms of our directing styles and the kinds of theater we do, could not be more different.
Yeah.
She's pretty much I'm not going to say that because she'll be like, no, you're categorizing me.
Don't you dare.
Yeah, right. We're just very different in style, although I have to say that much of what I learned about kindness as a director, I learned from watching Karen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
Yeah, well,
she does things with great care. I know the last time we worked together, I had gotten to an argument with another cast member about something, and I just went up to her and just apologized, like, I'm sorry, this shouldn't have happened. I did this. And her kindness in that moment is something that I'll never forget, because she was totally and completely understanding to a bonehead thing that I had done and could have, caused problems. And so I will always remember that moment. I love you to death. What can we tell these people? They can get tickets at tpnc.org.
Right. So here's a thing to know, because it's a tiny bit confusing. There are two kinds of seats. There are reserved seats, which are in the house, not on stage.
Right.
And then there's seating on what traditionally is the stage, and that's general seating. It's not reserved.
Right.
So if you buy one of those seats, and I think those are great seats.
And you won't be involved in
No, you won't be involved.
Yes.
But they are first come, first serve. So, and there's a couple of rows, there's a back row kind of thing. So if
Yeah.
you want to sit on stage and to have the best opportunity, best advantage of sitting on stage, try to get in the house early.
It's a beautiful thing because you're going old school, new school. Like new school, you go to the movies, you reserve your seats. But back in the day, when you went to the movies,
Right.
if you wanted a good seat, you had to get there early enough to get your seat reserved. So
That's
we are
back when
doing
everybody
both
went
things.
to the movies.
Yes.
Yeah, we're doing both things. It doesn't really matter. I don't think there's really going to be a bad seat,
No.
but it's really fun to sit on stage.
Look, people, this is going to be a unique theater experience. And on this podcast, we talk about theatrical experiences all the time. I couldn't recommend it higher. I went and saw one rehearsal and was moved just by what I saw. Granted, I like both of the performers.
You were amazing because the rehearsal finished. You were like, "Oh my god!" You were like gobsmacked, and that's sort of how I feel working on it.
Yeah, I mean the movement, the connection. They were in a museum rehearsing. It wasn't. I didn't have any of the bells and whistles that you would get, but it had a weight to it, a playfulness to it, connection that you just don't see at this level often. So I think people are going to go in and they're not ready for what they're going to get, and they're going to be so delighted by it. So I highly recommend it.
I want to say that. Can I say the names of the performers?
Please.
Thank you. So, because really, all credit to Jesse Lazat. I should say, I didn't cast roles. I cast an ensemble, and I literally contacted 6 actors who had auditioned, and I said, "Would you be part of this ensemble? I have no idea what parts you're going to be playing."
Yeah.
And they said yes. And that to me is such a great leap of faith. Anyway, Jesse Lazat does play Alice, and that's the only role that she plays. But then playing everybody else in no particular order, Amy Wade, Chandler Hall, Jeff Gilbert, Patrick Duffy, Larry Reyna, could not be more grateful to these individuals.
Yeah. I have worked with all of them. All of them I've worked with.
You are a lucky man.
I'm very, very lucky. and I have adored every experience that I've had with all of them. And I can't wait. I can't wait to see it. I'm not going to cheat myself. I'm trying to get tickets to opening night, and then I think I'm going to come again, and I'm going to bring the kids.
Dude, I love that.
I think it's totally worth the money.
So on the kids thing, this is not children's theater. Like if your child is 5, I don't think they are going to... I don't think it's their experience.
Yeah.
I would encourage like 10 and up, maybe.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you for adding that, because sometimes people they'll hear Alice in Wonderland and think, but I think on all the advertisements, I think it says
It's not like adult. It's not porn. It's not it's not anything like that.
But
It's
conceptually.
just, conceptually, I think that and there are themes that feel a little dark in the way that we explore them.
yeah,
So-
and those are in the book.
They're in the book.
Yeah. They're not in the Disney cartoon as much, but that's, iconic. Peter, thank you so much for coming over.
Thank you for inviting me.
We will talk again. Grady's not here to do his little fart noise, but you know what that sounds like, people. So we'll see you next week. Bye. So what did we learn? Well, I think we learned a lot, but I'm going to leave that up to you and just tell you that the Town Players of New Canaan, TPNC at Waveney Park, is presenting this very, very unique and genuine and organic telling of Alice in Wonderland, and it opens April 26th and closes on May 12th. So that's like 9 opportunities to go see this phenomenal show. It's going to be something special. I really believe that you are going to walk in and just be amazed by the unique thing that you are seeing in front of you. Tickets can be found at tpnc.org. I mean, I think everything you really need to know is in that interview. I mean, you can hear Peter's passion for it. I love the opportunity for local artists to get to do something that is very, very unique. And so often we are painting by numbers. Here we have a clear canvas in which to throw a bunch of paint and see what sticks and what doesn't stick. I know it's going to be a unique experience. It's going to feel genuine. You're going to see performers who put their whole heart and soul into a production. I'm so excited to see what they come up with.
Alice in Wonderland is a beautiful canvas for this kind of exploration. And I think you're going to come out and it may mean something different to everybody. And that's a really beautiful, beautiful thing to experience. And we don't often get to do that in local theater. So please, tpnc.org. Go get your tickets. It is April 26th to May, what did I say, 13th, 12th or 13th? I'm just looking at the little press release here, and I don't know if I want to read it to you. This is what I want you to know. I think this is going to be the most thoughtful production that goes up this year. I think it will be the most unique production that goes up this year. And if you want to see something unique, this is the play for you, Alice in Wonderland. But it's not really for kids, it's for adults. So, after that, don't forget to see that Sarah Rules Eurydice is going to be coming up at the theater. I wonder who's working on that. I've already gotten to so many deep discussions about grief. Oh, I hope I survive this one. But until then, please go see Alice in Wonderland. I can't recommend it high enough. Till next week, onward, forward.